It's getting hard to keep track of all the alleged Downing Street do's held during lockdowns, but the latest is quite spectacular. And now there seems to be email evidence. Well, to talk about this, I'm joined by Barry Gardiner, Labour MP for Brent North. Barry, thank you for joining us. So the invite to the party was by a top official. The table outside in the Downing Street garden was laden with booze and snacks. It's said, eyewitnesses say, the PM and his wife attended. Should he resign?
Yes, I think he should. As much for the fact that he has treated the British public with contempt as anything else. What we've seen now is not just one party. We've seen a pattern of behaviour where this government and this Prime Minister have held the public in such contempt. That day, the government actually tweeted out, the Metropolitan tweeted out, that they hoped everybody was enjoying the warm weather. They could now go back to the parks and exercise, but they had to do it either on their own, with somebody from their own family, or with no more than one other person. And we find that there was Boris Johnson with one person from his own family and 98 other people. That is just so unacceptable. And it shows, I think, the way in which this Prime Minister believes he is able to behave. And I think people are fed up with it.
I should just say 98 other people were invited, but not all of them turned up.
They may not have all turned up.
How big a deal is this in a world outside Westminster, outside these TV studios? Is there a case to be made? These were people all working together. So if they went outside in the garden, they were working very hard and had a drink together, then there's no risk of spreading the disease because they all work together anyway.
No, I don't think it's the case that they all work together. Let me say the reason this is important is because it is symptomatic of the way in which this government feels that it can create rules for everyone else but not abide by themselves. And that is the way that you look at what's happened with the procurement of the PPE during the pandemic, the way they created a separate VIP channel for their mates to get literally millions of pounds of contracts. £3 billion of which was wasted on PPE that they couldn't use because it wasn't to the correct specification, because these companies had no experience of providing this kit. So it shows the way in which the government feels that it can do what it likes with impunity, and it doesn't need to take notice of you and I and everyone in this country who's trying to do the right thing.
Should the police investigate?
Well, I called for the police to investigate right at the very first party that was reported, the December party. Cressida Dick refused to do so at that time. She said they had no evidence. I'd always thought it was the police's duty to try and uncover evidence where there was a prima facie report of a crime. And I think Cressida Dick now has huge egg on her face, because what's happened is we've seen that one in December was not the only party. It was not the only way in which this government was playing fast and loose with the rules. And they should have taken it up at the time, and then this would have all come out a lot sooner, and we could get on with the business of governing this country, of dealing with the crisis in our economy, of dealing with the cost of living problems that households are now having to face.
And talking about the cost of living, today is one of those days, they happen every week, where the opposition take control of what's debated and voted on in Parliament. Tell me what the Labour Party is debating, forcing a debate on and vote later today.
Look, we want to see a Britain in which everyone can put a roof over their head, food on the table, give their children opportunities, and move into old age with dignity and grace, right? But you can't do that if you don't have enough money to pay your rent, to put food on the table, or to heat your homes. So today what we're wanting to do is we're wanting to set out that cost of living agenda. And there are three things that I would like to see. The first is that we should actually expand the Warm Homes scheme, and that would make a real difference to those who are on the lowest incomes, to the pensioners in our society who really need that extra bit of heat because they're at home all day and they're on low income.
And this is the £140 that those on the lowest get at the moment.
That's right, and we would expand that scheme and enlarge it. The second thing I'd like to see them do is to actually put a windfall tax on the oil and gas industry. Last reported profits from Shell were over $70 billion. Exxon, $50 billion. And yet the Chancellor has been giving them tax breaks, 130% super tax deductibles. Why should we be subsidising those companies? There should be a windfall tax on them. And of course, the other thing, what was Brexit for? It was so we could take back control. We could actually lower VAT by the 5% that is still on domestic fuel, and that's a 5% cut in people's fuel bills.
Just very briefly, on that VAT cut that you are forcing a vote on this afternoon, the Prime Minister has pointed out that that benefits all of us. It's not progressive, you and I, well-off people, would benefit from that. And the Prime Minister's argument is that any help should be focused on those that need it most.
Well, look, I'd like to see the plan that he's got, because at the moment he hasn't put one forward. It's Labour that's putting forward this plan, and that's why we said there should be a special target for those on expanding the Warm Home Scheme, so that those who are on the lowest incomes benefit most. But, you know, sometimes if you want to maintain society and get people to feel that they are one society, universal benefits are very good idea. And that's why I think the 5% cut, we said we were going to abolish VAT when we left the European Union. Why is this government not doing it?
Barry Gardiner MP, Labour MP for Brent North. It's always a pleasure to see you. Thank you for coming in. Happy New Year.